Let's now take a look at another principle related to action potentials. As we mentioned earlier, if the stimulus that is reaching the axon hillock is sub-threshold, then as we can see from this diagram, an action potential is not generated. In other words, if the stimulus is weak, that is being generated at the dendrites or cell body, and by the time the graded potential gets down to the axon hillock, if the membrane potential has not reached the threshold level, here at -55 for instance, then an action potential will not be generated. So let's increase the strength of the stimulus, and let's make it such that by the time the graded potential reaches the axon hillock, the inside of the cell membrane has reached a membrane potential of -55. In other words, the stimulus has caused the membrane potential to reach the threshold level. If that is the case, that the inside of the neuron at the site of the axon hillock has reached the threshold level of -55, then what will happen is an action potential will automatically go ahead and be generated. So what happens if the stimulus is greater than the threshold stimulus? Well, there are two things that we're going to learn from this. One of the things that we can see is that if the strength of the stimulus is so great that it causes the membrane potential to reach greater than -55, then an action potential will be generated, but the action potential is not any greater in height. In other words, the inside of the cell does not reach any higher than a +30. This phenomenon is the all or none principle. The all or none principle states that an action potential will either occur completely or not at all. In other words, if the inside of the neuron reaches threshold level, then an action potential will occur, but there's not different strengths of action potentials. Another thing that we can learn from this diagram is that when we have stronger stimuli, that is ones that are supra-threshold, then it causes an increase in the frequency of the action potentials. It doesn't cause the action potentials to get taller or higher. It just simply causes more action potentials to be generated in a period of time. Touch something, for instance, very softly, then there will be just a few action potentials generated each second. On the other hand, if you touch something with a lot of force, so that there's a supra-threshold stimulus, then what will happen is the neuron that is sending the message will send a higher frequency of action potentials.